So, good day, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of the Fall 2021 BRASS Online Symposium. I'm Sharissa Jefferson, and I'm joined by my fellow committee members, Penny Scott, Christy Cunningham, and Angel Truesdale, and we're happy you could join us. And all of our sessions will be recorded. There are 9 sessions in this fall symposium, and we will make them available to everybody that has registered, and we will have them on ALA Connect as well. Today's first session is Building the BizRef Bridge as you cross it, a discussion between new and seasoned business librarians on how to boost business reference confidence. And our presenters are Jennilyn Wiley, Celia Ross, and Jennifer Boettcher. Thank you all for being here and looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you. We only have 45 minutes and this is a big issue. And so one of the things that we're going to ask you to do is we're going to post a poll and we're going to ask you who you are as we introduce ourselves as well. My name is Jennifer Boettcher. I work at Georgetown University. I call myself a business consultant because I find that that's more adaptable in the business school. I've been a business librarian for it'll be 30 years this next year, 29 years. I've been a business librarian for all of that time, but I went to library school to become a documents librarian. And I came in with an art history background. And so the next person, by the way, there are 3 questions here. So make sure you go down the poll to answer all 3 questions.
Celia?
Okay, hi. I am Celia Ross, and I am a business reference librarian at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. I've been here for about 11 years now, and I've been a business librarian. That's been my all business reference all the time job for the past 11 years. Before that, I've been a librarian since 1999 officially. Before that, I also worked as a high school librarian where I was kind of flying under the radar. I didn't have my degree yet. And I was a humanities major undergrad with a biology minor. I never thought I would be a business librarian. I call myself an accidental business librarian. And I am looking forward to seeing where everybody else is in their introductions.
I'm Jennilyn Wiley. I work at Auburn University Libraries in Reference and Instruction. I'm their business and economics librarian. And I have been a librarian and a business librarian since August. So, not even half a year yet. While I don't have a lot of library experience yet, I do have a lot of business experience. I spent about 15 years in business, working mostly in auditing and data analysis. I do have my undergraduate in business, and I also have a master's degree in knowledge management, which is a related field. I personally call myself an information professional and talk to people about helping them find and evaluate and use information. I feel like that helps kind of clarify a little bit more about what I do as opposed to calling myself a librarian. So that's me.
Okay, we're going to end the poll now. And we're going to now, do we have the results of the poll? Can we see those? Carissa, or will we see those at the end?
I think they're actually
In
on
the
the screen, Jennifer.
Oh, okay.
You might not be able to see it in your view, but it looks like over half of us have been a librarian for too long to count. We don't have any students right now, but we do have about 8 of us who have been business librarians for under 2 years. Or sorry, librarians for under 2 years. For business librarians, it's pretty evenly split between the under 2 years, 2 to 5, 5 to 10, and too long to count. And about 2/3 of our attendees did not have any business experience prior to being a librarian.
Like the panel. So that works. Our next one actually is, we want to acknowledge how some of you may feel about being coming into the field and being asked to do things that you may not be comfortable doing. So I encourage you to go to the Mentimeter.
I put the link in the chat.
And the link's in the chat. So please start filling this out, and we'll give you 2 minutes to fill this out. Just add the words.
While people are adding words to the poll there, the Mentimeter poll, I just wanted to note, I thought it was interesting. I was looking at the numbers from the Who Are You poll questions, and there's half of us say we've been librarians for too long to count, but half of that half, so only 27% out of the 50 whatever, have been business librarians for too long to count. So I think it'll be interesting to hear from people who have been librarians for longer but shifted roles and are taking on business, and how that might have helped them or not. Ooh, I like these words here.
Fun challenge, more on ya. Curious, that's good. Oh no.
Guilty.
Fun challenge is a nice way to look at it. I think that's a great attitude.
Yeah.
There's excited down there too. So there's at least one other person that feels like it's a fun challenge.
Yikes. Oh, I'm like a bad librarian. Hopefully you won't feel like a bad librarian after this. Tired.
Oh. How much time do we have to watch the cloud grow? Hopefully this will
Faster.
remain open, and we'll create a picture of this at the end and share with everybody so that you could realize you're not alone. This is one of the things that we want to emphasize, is that you are not alone in this. Are we done with the 2 minutes?
I'm sorry, I was not timing it, but let's say sure.
Let's say sure.
This will be the last refresh.
Okay. All right. So we all are, we're all there, and we've all gone through it, and you are not alone in this. And the thing is, it may not just be the way you feel is why you have some of these emotions. It may be that it may not be an environment which is actually that friendly for you at this time. Remember, you got the job. You're there. You're helping. You're there, and they are thrilled you are there. Remember that there's no right way of being a business librarian, even though you took Celia's class, which is a RUSA Business 101. And we encourage you to do that because it gives you an idea about some of the knowledge of the field. But there is no right way of doing this. There is no, all I have to do is learn these 10 things and I'll learn it all. One of the things that Jennilyn has shared with us in creating, going forward with this, is that she says, oh, you're the new, you're stepping into somebody else's shoes, and there's expectations that you're going to be just like that person. But you're not that person. You are who you are. You have a difference in approaching topics, subjects, knowledge. You're not doing it wrong because it's you who is doing it. So don't feel like, you're an imposter. You're there because you got the job. Sometimes the environment is not supportive of you. That they're asking, the students or faculty are asking for resources you don't have. One of the great things about being in that position is that you say, we don't have that. We don't have the finances to afford that. It's not on you. It's the institutional support. And because of that, you don't have to know about how to use that. So when you're listening to, at a brass discussion or something like that, and someone says, oh, well, this database has it, you may not have that database. And so you don't have to learn that database. And the thing is, burnout is an issue with new librarians. Please do self-care. Don't feel like you have to be there 60 hours a week. Don't feel like, they have you there for the contracted time, 35, 40 hours a week, and take your time to build up to speed. It takes about 3 to 5 years to feel more confident in your position. That's for any new job. And it's not the imposter syndrome. And let's get away from that word, imposter syndrome. It's an imposter phenomenon. It's not a sickness. You're not sick. The syndrome is not the right word, but you have the right to be there. You are who you are. You may just need the experience. You may need the education. You may need the time. You may need some mentoring. But that's one of the things that the professional organizations are here for, to help you with that education. You're here at this event, which means that you care enough to say, I want to grow. I want to build confidence. I want to be a better business librarian. And that's what associations and these connections are for. So thank you for being here. But most of our time today is actually going to be spent in a conversation between you, Jennilyn's going to be monitoring the chat, and then Celia, who is here with us, and myself, we're going to be switching off on answering questions, but it's going to be a conversation. So if we're talking too long and you still want to ask another question, and we'll jump into it. So go to the chat box and ask your question.
Yes, and while we're waiting for a couple of questions, I will get us started with one, but I also wanted to mention that in the chat box, we have talked a little bit about Celia's course, which she might want to speak a little bit about, as well as her book, which was something that I found helpful because there wasn't a course being offered right then. And also coming from a business background, I wasn't sure whether I needed the course or not. So I thought the book was like, it gave me a good idea of what that would be in that course. But I do want to kind of build off of what you said, Jennifer, with the 3 to 5 years, right, in a new role. I'm very interested in social network analysis and connections. And I recently read an article by Rob Cross, and they actually did research, and they found that for people who are trying to like step into a new role and be very effective, that it actually takes 3 to 5 years to build up all of the connections that you need to do your job well. So I thought that maybe you and Celia could both talk a little bit about the importance of connections and where you can find the connections and the different types of connections that you might need. And then I'll start looking at the questions that have come in so I can start fielding those for our next question.
Do you want to start, Jennifer, or you want me to?
Well, actually, you could talk about the connection. Basically, is you start building your connections with your colleagues first. You ask them, what did that person do that you like so much? What do you think I could do to improve on that? You know, and then kind of get a sense of who they are, because your colleagues are your support system. And then your connection is then your school, because I'm assuming we're academics. Some of us may be public librarians, but you know who you should be reaching out to, because maybe they're reaching to you when you get connected. And then also the associations, either a regional group or a national group, which we'll talk about within this. But Celia?
Yeah, so I think you can apply, and this is something I talk about in the book and the class that's been mentioned, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that in my introduction. That's also, it's part of the reason I'm here. It's part of this workshop is along the same lines as what drove writing, making sense of business reference, and doing the course. Like, I want to help people feel more confident, feel less like they're alone. And so, and networking is definitely part of that, and building your network, and also giving yourself that time to build it. Relationships take time, good ones especially. So I think there's this feeling that you need to do everything at double speed, especially when you're new, because you're spinning your wheels and trying to catch up. So take that pressure off yourself right away. I also want to back up a little bit and just say, as I'm as we're having this conversation, like I can only speak to my own personal experience, and you know, your mileage may vary depending on your own experience and your own privilege or lack of privilege. So in other words, there's no blueprint or one size fits all, like here's the steps to becoming confident in your identity as a business reference librarian. And remember that that's just one facet of your identity. That's not everything. So if you're feeling a little vulnerable or not fully confident in that part of your life, that's okay. It's one piece. I think I saw flashing in the chat, somebody said we need to normalize feeling vulnerable. And honestly, like I think that is key. Like everybody, we're all in this together, right? And so one of the things I wanted to mention is for networking, you can ask yourself, who cares about you? And one of the first people should be yourself. Put that up there, and then look around you. And like Jennifer said, your colleagues care about you. It's not some zero-sum game or Hunger Games competition where you're trying to, scrape, step on everybody to get to the top. If it feels like that, look around and maybe reevaluate your situation. But so look to those people who cares about your success. It's mutually beneficial for everybody for you to do well. Just because you do well, that's going to help the institution. It's going to help. It's going to help your colleagues. I will say, the institution that has hired you and that is your, is your employer, they are not your family. They are not necessarily, like, they care in a sense, but don't place too much weight in those, maybe the personification or those feelings around the institution itself. Focus more on people, focus more on, in that sense, the people who are your colleagues, the people who are your peers in BRASS. I think, look for your people. You'll kind of know you found them when you get excited about the same things and you can nerd out, or you can share your vulnerability and not feel like, you're being actively listened to and not dismissed.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions. I think, Celia, you picked up on the vulnerability, which I had seen. I'd also seen somebody talking a little bit about being isolated with the connections, and then also just the challenge of making connections during COVID and being shut down. So that kind of tied in there. I don't know if there's anything that either one of you want to mention about that.
One of the great things about COVID, actually, a few good things about COVID, is that a lot of our associations have broken out of the conference, midwinter conference connection programming and stuff like that. So for a lot of the new people who are here, the BRASS is the business reference and services section of RUSA, which is the Reference and User Services Association, which is a part of ALA, which is to say that if you want to talk to other business librarians, you have to join ALA, you have to join RUSA. Then once you're a member of RUSA, then you can go in and become a BRASS member. And that's how you connect with BRASS. In BRASS, there are guides on best of the best by topics, and then databases by topics. And everybody who's written in those subject guides for topics is an expert, is somebody who knows something. And that if you're saying, I have a question on this and I don't want to post it to BizLib, which is BizLibL, which is a listserv, which we'll also have some links to after the end. And you don't want to post it there, you just want to ask somebody directly, that's how you kind of connect as another business librarian who knows about that topic. And so that's a way of connecting to other people. And I believe those BRASS list guides are public. They're not behind a paywall. So you don't have to actually be a member of BRASS to reach out to a BRASS member.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I think along the lines of reframing our mental perception of COVID in a positive sense. There are some good things that came out of it. And I think just making these kinds of meetings way more simplified, and everybody is like Zoom is not a big deal anymore. So taking advantage of discussions like this, I was noticing even at the beginning, Jennilyn, when you were telling Angel you were going to reach out, and like you heard her talking about another thing, like all these connections, you're making them right now. Even just like scanning through the chats and seeing who's talking about this and that. Some of the sessions yesterday were amazing, and I have questions I'm going to be sending out and asking, and so you should never feel vulnerable to the point where you are afraid to reach out. I think hopefully discussions like this will help you see that whether we've been business librarians for 30 years or 3 hours, like we're all here to help each other. And I think everybody is invested in everyone's success. Together we're stronger. So
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tie kind of an earlier question in the chat together with a later one. Early on, somebody asked, what was your number one recommendation for new business librarians, which I think would probably be difficult. But later on, we had someone that got a little more specific on that, which was, do you have tips for figuring out what business students need, or what they need and when they need it, when they ask for it? Like basically they were indicating that they're new to business, so they don't even know what a typical business assignment looks like because they didn't take business classes in school. So they talked about the importance of the reference interview, which I learned early on that I was deeply terrible at the reference interview, even after spending 15 years meeting my own information needs. So I don't know if you could speak a little bit about that, like, getting familiar with what those assignments might look like and helping the students figure out what it is that they need, as those number one recommendations for people new to the.
I was lucky enough to have Todd Hines, who is now the business librarian in Stanford, as an intern when he was going to library school. And I hear him repeat the advice I gave him, which is, how to find the information. You're not supposed to know what they're talking about. The person asking you the question knows their field, even if it's a student, they know what they want to know, right? You don't have to know the subject. You don't have to know the terminology. You don't really have to know that. And if you're really confused and they're saying, I need, and your databases, and you're saying, I'm not quite sure where to find that or what sources there is. My advice to him and to anybody who is being confronted with a question that kind of like, oh my God, where do I start? Is you say, well, let's see who's written about this. Go to the scholarly literature and look at the bibliography and look at the sources they used. And those will guide you to the places to go to find that, because it also helps them refine the question. It's like, well, I want this, and because they don't know what they don't know, right? So giving them that option allows them to refine it a little bit closer. Celia, you had some other advice in your book. I read that.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you're saying is, and what Jennilyn was saying, like going back to the basics, remembering that you are a trained librarian, like you're going to be more conscious of it. It's like when you're learning to drive or learning any new skill, you're hyper aware of, okay, I am turning the key in the ignition or pressing the button now, and shifting and changing lanes. Like that's going to come more naturally as you gain confidence and skill. But to like be okay, like separate out some of the things that maybe you have already put into that rote memory of the reference interview, being more actively engaged with remembering those steps and thinking about, oh, okay, they don't know what they don't know. And going back to empathy too, which I think empathy for yourself in this situation where you might feel overwhelmed, and then that's going to make you a better librarian if you can show empathy to that student to know that they're not supposed to know. They don't know what IBIS World is. They don't know what Mintel is. I think going back to that original question though, about like, how do I understand what all the students need? Like what kind of assignments are they going to come up with? What are they really looking for? I would say, don't put all that pressure on yourself to understand it deeply, because that way lies madness. I think trying to, do a comprehensive assessment of all the assignments and things like that, that's something you can work towards, like building relationships with faculty and building more assignments that are clear and that have learning outcomes tied to them that the library can support more clearly, rather than getting that, sometimes the assignments aren't totally thought through and you feel like it's you who's not finding what they're being asked for, but it's really just the assignment itself could have been, is the goal of the assignment for the student to feel like they don't know where to turn to find information, or is it to analyze some found data that you're going to help them find, give it to them? You kind of have to break out those pieces.
And actually, to build on that, there's the first question I usually ask when I'm not quite sure where to start is I always ask, what class is this for? Because if someone says, I need to market on biotechnology, you don't know if it's finance, marketing, what? So the first question is, what class is this for? And as Celia said, go back if they show you the assignment and you're still not quite sure or anything else, go back to the faculty, because faculty want to do this better as well. And it's not unusual to have adjunct faculties, assuming you have access to databases they have at work. And so you may not have those, and you need to go back to that faculty member and just to help clarify and don't accuse them of anything. Just say, I want to help the students here, and I'm hoping that I could work out, what do you want? And talk to the faculty. Don't tell them you did it wrong. Tell them, I want to be able to help you, make this better, if not for this year, next year, because you're going to see it again and again and again.
Yeah, and you can frame it as help them, help you, help the students, make everybody's life easier and have better learning outcomes and better assignments being turned in. But again, going back to those basics, what class are you in? What is this, a question that I work with teams that are often working on these like action-based learning. They're working for a corporate sponsor. And sometimes those questions are really snarly and they're asking for everything, and scope creep is happening. And so the students don't know what they want, because they're trying to impress the sponsor. I tell them to go back to that sponsor and say, if we could give you exactly what you were looking for, what would it look like? What would that end deliverable be? Because sometimes you can get so wrapped up in all the jargon and, the question itself isn't fully articulated in a way that, would make sense to someone who is either not in that class or not on that project. So go back to basics, and that can help you in a reference situation too. Like if I could give you exactly what you were looking for, so the market for biotechnology, that they have to put some words on it now and make it, and you can help them again, you can build some metacognition into it. Say like, let's break this out into smaller pieces. It's going to help you understand it. It's going to help me understand what you need. So let's and be talking out loud about how this is a messy process. It's not you, it's business research, and you can kind of empathize with them and say, we're here together. I often describe my role to the teams and the students that I'm working with. I'm part safari guide, and I'm going to help you navigate these pathways, and the databases are like wild animals, and hopefully you won't get eaten. I can't tell you exactly how they'll behave in any given situation, because it all depends. But I'm also part pack mule. I'll help them gather some data. And I'm also part, research therapist. So I will help them kind of bounce their ideas off of me. And I will recommend that they do the same, because sometimes that talking out loud can lead to all kinds of insights as well, before you even get into the databases, and also dispelling the myth that all the answers are in the databases. That can be part of that conversation about like, this is messy.
And the second question I would ask before I go down that road is ask, what's your deliverable? Because sometimes I just need a data point to fill this in. Right. And sometimes it's a 20-page, capstone. Right. So if it's just a data point, I mean, that's, easy enough. But if they need to do the analysis, Then if they're coming to me quickly, I say, let's schedule an appointment.
Yep.
You don't have to answer the questions right away. Give yourself a little time if it's going to be an in-depth thing to
Right.
say, well, let's make some time. Let's make an appointment.
Yeah,
So
I would
So-
say,
I'm
is-
sorry, I was
That's
gonna
okay.
interrupt really quick, just because we're getting to the half-hour point. I don't know if you realized that yet. And there are like 73 messages I haven't even read yet. So I
That's
wanted
good.
to ask, like, if I can save the chat, like, are both of you willing to answer some of these questions via email to people?
please.
And then
Oh, yeah.
maybe, because I know we have some wrap up things at the end, if you want to, take a moment and like say whatever that one last thing is that you want to say in terms of help. Because I was going to ask about collection development and balancing, how much money you have, because there were a lot of questions in that area early on. I don't know that like a minute or two is enough time to really delve into that. So
Really quick, when you feel discouraged and you say, I feel like I'm an imposter, look at the mission of the library, look at the mission of the university and saying, are you feeling that university or that mission? And know in your heart, as long as you're doing that, you're doing a great job.
Right. And it takes any skill takes time and practice. And, business reference is not a microwave burrito. It's more of a 5-course complicated meal, and it takes time to cook and learn how to get all the ingredients together. So, and when you take that time and give yourself that permission to take that time, you're going to do great.
Should I go to the next slide? Which is the
Yes.
reflection and next steps. So yes, we have 70 more questions left in there coming in.
well, there's comments and questions, yeah, and so
But
clearly.
here, we'd like to be able to give this opportunity for you to either ask additional questions, give your own insights. We have a lot of people here who've been a business librarian longer than, they want to, for a very long time. So if you have advice, if you have other things, if you have what resonated with you, we're going to leave this open for at least 5 minutes and then comment. And then Jennilyn, that's been.
Yeah, I realized I had a copy paste from before. Let me pop the correct one into the chat. There we go. So you should be able to click on it. And just so you know, when you're, putting your comments or your thoughts or your reflections, we do have a category over to the right that says, don't limit me with categorization. If you don't feel like your reflection fits in any of the categories, or you're just like, I can't be bothered to think about categorizing my reflection.
Do I have to refresh on this or can we see it live?
Let's see, we'll watch and see.
I don't see anything on it yet. And that could be because I was a little late getting the link in the chat.
And if you can't get through, just let us know.
We still don't have a link. We still don't have a link in the
It's
chat.
not in the chat?
Oh,
Well, the URL is up there, so. if you
Here, I'll put it in again.
maybe it got bumped.
I
Oh,
think we were
oh,
just
you know
working
what?
with
It's
all
going
that.
to Angel somehow for some reason. Sorry, Angel. Let's try this again.
She's like, all right, already.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry.
Okay, we got more people coming in. Excellent.
One thing I was thinking about, so as people are filling this in, I'll just say, I feel like this business reference is a lot like some of the tips you can use to comfort yourself with business reference are the same as the ones you can use for like raising children and getting new puppies. We just got a new puppy, so I've been thinking about the similarities between having a new kid in the house. But the highs are great, but those are also, they're temporary, but the lows are also, the lows are only going to last for a little while too. So, savor the great times when you can, and your successes, and know, be ready for the dips in the road, and but know that those are temporary nothing lasts. So,
Okay.
and you're not
Celia,
alone.
You'll answer the 101 question, then I'm gonna answer
Sure.
the question, it's how do you know when you're done enough?
Okay,
'Cause
which
I
one?
have the answer for that.
The sign up for the Business Reference 101 course, or?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mentioned in the chat, but it was way back 100 up or so, the next round of Business Reference 101, which is basically the course that the book that I wrote called Making Sense of Business Reference is based on Business Reference 101. The next session is being offered, I think, starting January 10th. So it's a little bit early in the year, so make it your New Year's resolution. And if that doesn't fit with your schedule, the book is basically the class in book form. And there's a new edition of it that's not completely out of date yet. That came out in the second edition came out at the end of 2019, I think.
and
It's all a blur.
And there's another book that just came out this year as well from Hal Kirkwood, which isn't about how to be a business librarian as much as the resources. So I think they're complementary to each other. By the way, you can also love on the one, so you can hit the chat. But how do you know when you've done enough? Is basically, you don't have to be exhaustive. For one thing, you can't prove a negative. I'm looking for everything on this. You can't prove a negative. It will always be more. To be, more comprehensive is to pick up the phone, tell your student or whoever to pick up a phone and talk to somebody who's doing it. I mean, there's always more you can suggest. How do you know when you've done enough? Well, when they start rolling their eyes, they're shuffling their feet, because maybe you're giving them too much. And always what you offer is say, this is the beginning. When you're talking to somebody and you don't feel like it's been exhaustive, say to them, this is this is just a start. As you have more questions, come back to me. Because usually when you're spinning your wheels, you're answering the question for yourself and not for them. So give them something to start with because you don't want to give them too much.
Yeah.
Can somebody find the Hal Kirkwood's book? I think it was Libraries Unlimited, was it?
Oh, Strauss's Handbook.
Yeah, it was the new Strauss.
Yeah.
It's the new Strauss handbook.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned that previously in the chat as well.
If my faculty will give me an which new book should you buy? That's curriculum based. That really is. I mean, if you don't teach insurance, the best insurance book in the world won't help you. The Brass does have a best of the best, and there's some book reviews that come out for that. But sometimes it's just posting it on the listserv. Celia, what do you go for?
And in the book and in the course, I recommend the University of Florida, Peter, I'm blanking on his last name.
McKay.
And McKay has a great new business books and broken out by title. You can look through Harvard's catalog and see their new books if you want to. There's a way to limit so you can, I would say look around. That requires, again, a little bit more of a reference interview too. If they want new books, do they want popular management books? Do they want more core academic titles? Business is hard because it's a practical science and an academic science. And so monographs get especially tricky. And I would go back to some of the basics of ACRL learning outcomes, in order to what, do you want these books in order to educate in what area, or, and think about access as well. Think about eBooks, speaking of COVID, what format do you want these in? Questions lead to more questions sometimes. And I think a lot of people mentioned feeling overwhelmed by all of this. So remember to step back.
Actually has the best business, or the popular, bestseller of the business books. And so you can go to the New York Times and see what's there. but, you know, is your faculty more practice-based? Because that's what the New York Times stuff, or
Right.
is it going to be more scholarly based and
Well,
it's just all over?
Yeah,
But
and remember, you're not the only person that's had that question. So I know if you go to like Steve Kramer's business liaison blog, like Liaison Life, or if you go to the Biz Liberatory, I think someone just had a post about how they keep up on new entrepreneurial topics. So there's, you know, think of different ways you could approach this beyond, you know, break out of that mindset of, oh, it has to be going to choice reviews or going to the Charleston Review, things like that.
oh God, there's so many great advice. By the way, we are going to be capturing the Padlet, the everything else. We're capturing all this, and it will be included in the the
Slides.
drive and in the Brass Connect and everything else. So this will all be captured for you. And hopefully, Jennilyn, when we're ending it up, if you can capture the checks, I haven't.
Yes,
done
I've
any of
been
the
trying
checks.
to periodically save it just so I don't forget.
Yeah. I think
All
it'll be
right.
saved somewhere in the recording too, but no, I'm just like skimming very briefly, and I love seeing all the connections that are happening just even in the chat. So like,
I think it
you
just shows
guys, you're doing it.
how important it is to have like these type of sessions where we can connect with one another and ask our questions.
Yeah, we should have you like a
this will
little
stay
therapy
up.
session.
This will stay up and this will still be going for you. So I'm gonna go back to the slides because we just have a few more things in the last 4 minutes. Again, these slides will be made available to you since you sign up, since you're here already, but you could also then share them with others. These are open and available to you all. These are links to actually Brass, which is a part, like I said, of RUSA. And so this is some of the things that they're doing and some of the resources that they have available to you. If some places rather do SLA, and I will get that page back up. Apparently it's not working today. But one of the other things we did is that we created a bibliography that's been designed for you, for all the new people, particularly about links to everybody. And I'll make sure that Cabal thing is.
The link is in the
working.
chat.
And so good. And so in here, one of the things that we started this list, but this is an open source list, and we encourage you to add any insights, anything else, any other things that you could think of that will help. Other conferences, that there's all of these conferences, regional conferences that sometimes have a virtual component to it, and sometimes they're in person only. There are other groups like ISS. I started as a government documents person. GoDort, there's business and government documents, but then there's also, this is not very well developed, and we really encourage you to develop it. And I'll add under bibliography, the Hal Clarkwood book, unless somebody wants to do it before I can get to it. And just add other suggestions and everything. This is going to be a living document. It's going to not be closed, and you all can get to it anytime if you want to add to anything. So in the last couple of minutes, I have one last question to ask you. Oops. The next question to ask you, I'm going to ask you to go to the Mentimeter, and on the next page, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel now after this presentation? How do you feel? And so if you can go to Mentimeter or to the link you had open already and just go to the next page.
It's not advancing for me.
It's not advancing for you.
You might have to go back to that original, go back to your side of it where it says voting. Yeah, that tab.
Yeah.
And go to the
okay.
next.
And I did put the link back in the chat just in case people
Yeah.
had closed out of it.
And I'll put that in chat. I think I can do something in chat here.
Oh, well, I think we might be running out of time here, so.
Oh, are they gonna give us a little time?
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure that the link is.
Yeah, we're not getting that as like a next page.
Okay, in the chat, if you want to tell us how you feel, bring it on.
Let's just assume it's all bring it on.
Willing to try, still totally lost. And if you are feeling totally lost, let us know and we will reach out. Maybe not this year, but next year, which is in 2 weeks. Or reach out to us. I personally am not going anywhere for the holidays, so.
Jennifer, do you want to put the slide up with our contact information
Oh,
to
yes,
end?
let's do
That way, now you've got you can send out the bat signal anytime.
We're at 12:45. And you were saying, oh, they'll be happy if we end early.
Yeah, I will say it looked like on a quick scan of the chat, people were either bring it on or getting there. I didn't see anybody who seemed to like still be just completely and totally lost, or at least that was willing to admit their vulnerability to that.
That's a good thing about Mentimeter is that you don't put a
Yeah,
name to
It's
it.
anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, Jennilyn, and Celia. I know that this was valuable even for somebody who's been in the business librarian role for quite some time. I always learn so much from you. So thank you for bringing this conversation to our profession. I know we need more of that. So this was valuable for everyone. So many great ideas, so many resources to share. And we will make sure that when after today's session, there will be a Google Drive and you can post all the links and you're in, like maybe on a Google Doc, have all your links in a section of the folder for your presentation, and we'll share that with all of the registrants. Does that sound good? Great. Well, thank you so much.